Concept of value. Psychologists, sociologists and anthropologists have viewed values as the criteria people use to evaluate actions, people and events. When we think of our values, we think of what is important to us in our lives. For example, security, independence, wisdom, success, kindness or pleasure. Each of us holds numerous values with varying degrees of importance. A particular value may be very important to one person, but it may be unimportant to another. Consensus regarding the most useful way to conceptualize basic values has emerged gradually since the 1950s. We can summarize the main features of the conception of basic values implicit in the writings of many theorists and researchers as: first, values are beliefs tied inextricably to emotion. They are not objective or cold ideas. Values motivate people to strive to achieve their desirable goals. Values transcend specific actions and situations. They are abstract goals. Values serve as standards or criteria. Values are hierarchical. This feature of values also distinguishes them from norms and attitudes. Values are thus desirable, trans-situational goals varying in importance that serve as guiding principles in people's lives. These 5 features are common to all values. 10 motivationally distinct, broad and basic values are derived from 3 universal requirements of the human condition: needs of individuals as biological organisms, requisites of coordinated social interaction, and survival and welfare needs of groups. These basic values are intended to include all the core values recognized in cultures around the world. These values motivate and regulate the behavior of human beings in achieving their goals. These values are self-direction, which promotes independent thought and action, choosing, creating or exploring a goal; stimulation, which creates excitement, novelty and challenge in life; hedonism, which is pleasure and sensuous gratification for oneself; achievement, which refers to personal success through demonstrating competence according to social standards; power, that is social status and prestige, control or dominance over people and resources; security, safety, harmony and stability of society, of relationships and of self; conformity implies restraint of actions, inclinations and impulses which are likely to upset or harm others and violate social expectations or norms; tradition demands respect, commitment and acceptance of the customs and ideas that traditional culture or religion provide; benevolence implies preserving and enhancing the welfare of those with whom one is in frequent personal contact, that is the in-group; universalism refers to understanding, appreciation, tolerance and protection for the welfare of all people and even for nature. Both power and achievement values focus on social esteem. However, achievement values emphasize actively demonstrating successful performance in concrete interaction, whereas power values emphasize attaining or preserving a dominant position within the more general social system. Tradition and conformity values are especially close motivationally because they share the goal of subordinating the self in favor of socially imposed expectations. They differ primarily in the objects to which one subordinates the self. Conformity entails subordination to persons with whom one is in frequent interaction, such as parents, teachers or bosses. Tradition entails subordination to more abstract objects such as religious and cultural customs and ideas. As a corollary, conformity values exhort responsiveness to current, possibly changing expectations. Human values are prescriptive in nature. Values form the core around which less enduring beliefs are organized. A finite set of values is the foundation for an infinite set of attitudes. Dignity. Dignity designates a value that has no equivalent, that is, that which is beyond any price. Dignity is a term used in moral, ethical and political discussions to signify that a being has an innate right to respect and to ethical treatment. It is an extension of the Enlightenment era concepts of inherent inalienable rights. Dignity is generally prescriptive and cautionary. For example, in politics, it is usually used to critique the treatment of oppressed and vulnerable groups and peoples, but it has also been extended to apply to cultures and subcultures, religious beliefs and ideals, and even to animals used for food or research and to plants. Dignity is generally prescriptive and cautionary. For example, in politics, it is usually used to critique the treatment of oppressed and vulnerable groups and people, but it has also been extended to apply to cultures and subcultures, religious beliefs and ideals, and even to animals used for food or research and to plants. The English word dignity comes from Latin dignitas by way of French dignité. In ordinary usage, it denotes respect and status. However, it is rarely defined outright in political, legal and scientific discussions. International proclamations have thus far left dignity undefined, and scientific commentators such as those arguing against genetic research and alchemy cite dignity as a reason for opposing it. The dictionary definition for dignity is a state or quality or manner worthy of esteem or self-respect, and by extension self-respect. Human dignity is inviolable. It must be respected and protected. Dignity is another value that regulates the behavior of individuals. Dignity is a relative term with regulatory nature. Dignity prescribes the norms and ethical standards which are needed to be followed and adopted. In the day-to-day interrelationships, individuals are expected to behave with one another in a dignified and an honest manner. This concept of dignity dictates that every one of us has to exercise due caution and care in our relations without undermining the capacities of other persons. Further, it teaches us not to create a situation wherein others are made to undergo emotional, psychological, physical, tense situations or to harm their personality. Since dignity plays a vital role in regulating the human relations and for the furtherance of human rights, especially the basic rights of liberty, equality and freedom, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in no uncertain terms declared that all individuals are equal in the eyes of law. All deserve to be treated with utmost respect without harming their dignity at all times. Now, coming to the definition of dignity, human dignity is inviolable. It must be respected and protected. Legal explanations. The dignity of human person is not only a fundamental right in itself, but constitutes the real basis of fundamental rights. The 1948 Universal Declaration of Human Rights enshrined this principle in its preamble, whereas recognition of the inherent dignity and of the equal and inalienable rights of all members of the human family is a foundation of freedom, justice and peace in the world. It follows from this that none of the rights laid down in this charter may be used to harm the dignity of another person, and that the dignity of the human person is part of the substance of rights laid down in this charter. It must therefore be respected even where a right is restricted. The right to dignity recognizes the intrinsic and equal worth of all human beings. As such, all persons are entitled to be treated as worthy of respect and concern. The concept of intrinsic worth captures the idea that each human life has value, independent of things like social status or economic productivity. The idea of equal worth stresses that this value is the same in all human beings, regardless of their other characteristics such as sex, race, ethnic or social origin, age, disability, and so on. Actual protection of human rights requests logically clear legal concepts, legally established or thoroughly discussed in legal doctrine, that would be equally understood in different applicable situations and would presuppose rights and duties of unambiguous behavior. Human dignity and right to dignity are concepts also bound to such discussion. The right to dignity is nowadays accepted as the highest human right, the source of rights. The right to dignity has been usually explained through its objectively understood origin. It has been claimed that this right has neither been granted by the state nor created by the person himself or herself, but exists irrespectively of sex, race and nationality as well as from lifestyle. Every human being has been provided with it. Dignity is related to human subsistence itself. No one can take away this right to dignity. This right is owned not only by the honest, but also by dictators, child molesters or other asocial individuals. Even an unborn life in the body of a mother has the matter of course dignity. This means that an individual himself or herself is not involved in creation of his or her dignity. That dignity is put into the person from outside, that it is like a biological human property that may be neither given nor created nor lost. That dignity is a characteristic even of the unborn life in the body of a mother. These traditions of the passive or static dignity have in one way or another affected various legal acts, international declarations and conventions. The Virginia Declaration claims all people are born equal, free and have certain inborn rights that as soon as individuals accept the status of society may not be taken away by any later agreements made by their descendants. Article 1. The same tradition of inborn rights, although in a weaker form, has been continued in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which states all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. Article 1. However, this ignores the fact that birth may become a source of rights only if society in which the birth has occurred is ready to recognize a priori each person's worth. History names primitive societies that, forced by their survival needs and low economic possibilities that could assure such needs, were killing weak babies, powerless old people, as if they did not know that these babies and old people were born equal in dignity and rights. In slaveholding and feudal societies, only the noble were taken as dignified. The right to dignity was not recognized for slaves and villeins. Slaves were only granted a status of talking labor instruments. The Jews and Gypsies in the Nazi Germany were also not treated as subjects of the right to dignity. The origin of social human dignity was defended by an English philosopher, Thomas Hobbes, even in the 17th century. He said, human dignity, the public worth of a man, which is the value set on him by the Commonwealth. However, Hobbes later on also recognized the role of the person himself or herself in creating one's worth, which is related with the concept of active dignity. The tendency to define human dignity as self-evaluation determined by societal evaluation expresses an idea about the existence of objective and subjective dignity features, about their interaction where probably the identity of human dignity should be looked for. Dignity can thus be defined as human worth arising from an individual's ability to live properly in a society. Liberty. Liberty has played a vital role in the promotion of human rights. Liberty is an ancient concept. This concept has its roots in the political philosophy of a number of philosophers like Hobbes and Locke, Rousseau, and many more have articulated liberty in a different context. In simple terms, liberty means human beings are free to regulate their relations and are able to govern their relations behavior on their own will and be responsible for their acts. Depending upon the acts performed by individuals, liberty can be enjoyed or it can be achieved. If the acts are bad or performed with an intention to defray anybody or deprive others of their claims, they not only affect the rights of others, but also affect their own rights in the longer run. This in turn will have an effect on the realization of their rights. Liberty is a moral and political principle that seeks to identify the condition in which human beings are able to govern themselves. There are different conceptions of liberty which articulate the relationship of individuals to society in different ways. Individualistic and classical liberal conceptions of liberty typically consist of the freedom of individuals from outside compulsion or coercion or force. This is also known as negative liberty. This conception of liberty, which coincides with the libertarian point of view, suggests that people should, must and ought to behave according to their own free will and take responsibility for their actions, while in contrast, social liberal conceptions of liberty place an emphasis upon social structure and agency. This is called positive liberty. What constitutes liberty can be generally classified as positive liberty and negative liberty. Positive liberty asserts that freedom is found in a person's ability to exercise agency, particularly in the sense of having the power and resources to carry out their own will without being inhibited by the structural inhibitions from society such as racism, classism or sexism. In the negative sense, one is considered free to the extent to which no person interferes with his or her activity. According to Thomas Hobbes, for example, a free man is he that is not hindered to do what he hath the will to do. John Stuart Mill, in his work on liberty, was the first to recognize the difference between liberty as the freedom to act and liberty as the absence of coercion. In his books, Two Concepts of Liberty, Berlin formally framed the differences between these two perspectives as the distinction between two opposite concepts of liberty, that is, positive liberty and negative liberty. The latter designates a negative condition in which an individual is protected from tyranny and the arbitrary exercise of authority, while the former refers to having the means or opportunity rather than lack of restraint to do things. The concept of negative liberty has several noteworthy aspects. First, negative liberty defines a realm or zone of freedom in the silence of law. In Berlin's words, liberty in the negative sense involves an answer to the question, what is the area within which the subject, a person or group of persons, is or should be left to do or be what he is able to do or be without interference by other persons. Some philosophers have disagreed on the extent of this realm, while accepting the main point that liberty defines that realm in which one may act unobstructed by others. Second, the restriction on the freedom to act. Implicit in negative liberty is imposed by a person or persons and not due to causes such as nature, lack or incapacity. Helvetius expresses this point clearly. The free man is the man who is not in irons, nor imprisoned in a jail, nor terrorized like a slave by the fear of punishment. It is not lack of freedom to fly like an eagle or swim like a whale. Article 5. Right to liberty and security. Everyone has the right to liberty and security of person. No one shall be deprived of his liberty save in the following cases and in accordance with a procedure prescribed by law. A. The lawful detention of a person after conviction by a competent court. B. The lawful arrest or detention of a person for non-compliance with the lawful order of a court or in order to secure the fulfillment of any obligation prescribed by law. C. The lawful arrest or detention of a person effected for the purpose of bringing him before a competent legal authority on reasonable suspicion of having committed an offence or when it is reasonably considered necessary to prevent his committing an offence or fleeing after having done so. D. The detention of a minor by lawful order for the purpose of educational supervision or his lawful detention for the purpose of bringing him before the competent legal authority. E. The lawful detention of persons for the prevention of the spreading of infectious diseases of persons of unsound mind, alcoholics or drug addicts or vagrants. F. The lawful arrest or detention of a person to prevent his effecting an unauthorized entry into the country or of a person against whom action is being taken with a view to deportation or extradition. 2. Everyone who is arrested shall be informed promptly in a language which he understands of the reasons for his arrest and of any charge that is levelled against him. 3. Everyone arrested or detained in accordance with the provisions of paragraph 1c of this article shall be brought promptly before a judge or other officer authorized by law to exercise judicial power and shall be entitled to trial within a reasonable time or to release pending trial. 3. Everyone arrested or detained in accordance with the provisions of paragraph 1c of this article shall be brought promptly before a judge or other officer authorized by law to exercise judicial power and shall be entitled to trial within a reasonable time or to release pending trial. Release may be conditioned by guarantees to appear for trial. 4. Everyone who is deprived of his liberty by arrest or detention shall be entitled to take proceedings by which the lawfulness of his detention shall be decided speedily by a court and his release ordered if the detention is not lawful. 5. Everyone who has been the victim of arrest or detention in contravention of the provisions of this article shall have an enforceable right to compensation. Article 21 of the Constitution says that no person shall be deprived of his life or personal liberty except according to procedure established by law. Prior to Maneka Gandhi's decision, Article 21 guaranteed the right to life and personal liberty to citizens only against the arbitrary action of the executive and not from legislative action. But after Maneka Gandhi's decision, Article 21 now protects the right to life and personal liberty of citizens not only from the executive action, but from the legislative action also. Article 21 is the celebrity provision of the Indian Constitution and occupies a unique place as a fundamental right. It guarantees right to life and personal liberty to citizens and aliens and is enforceable against the state. The new interpretation of Article 21 in Maneka Gandhi's case has ushered a new era of expansion of the horizons of the right to life and personal liberty. Right to life and personal liberty is the modern name for what have been traditionally known as natural right. It is one of the primordial rights necessary for the development of human personality. It is the moral right which every human being, everywhere, at all times ought to have, simply because of the fact that in contrast with other beings, he is rational and he is moral. Let us see the meaning and scope of personal liberty. The smallest article of 18 words has the greatest significance for those who cherish the ideals of liberty. In India, the concept of liberty has received a far more expansive interpretation. The Supreme Court of India has rejected the view that liberty denotes merely freedom from bodily restraint and has held that it encompasses those rights and privileges which have long been recognized as being essential to the orderly pursuit of happiness by free men. Summing up the meaning and scope of liberty, the smallest article of 18 words has the greatest significance for those who cherish the ideals of liberty. In India, the concept of liberty has received a far more expansive interpretation. The Supreme Court of India has rejected the view that liberty denotes merely freedom from bodily restraint and has held that it encompasses those rights and privileges which have long been recognized as being essential to the orderly pursuit of happiness by free men.